Star Rail version 2.3 was a roller coaster of emotions, especially with Firefly's third and awesome death, courtesy of Sparkle, and our goodbye to Acheron with her real face from when she was still Raiden Bosomori Mei. But we also got a few things that are slightly tricky to figure out, especially when it comes to Jade. We also received valuable information about the Celeron Hunters, but before getting there we will also go through a long and tortuous theory from another YouTube channel that got me really curious, especially because it's about the Eons and I love the Eons. But before that, this is a theory video. I will use information available in the game, but my theories and conclusions are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I got something right and it's confirmed in a later update of the game itself. With that being said, I think it's time to start this video. In 2.3 we learned a little bit more about the 10 stone hearts and their cornerstones. These cornerstones contain the authority of the emanator of the preservation, Diamond. Every stone heart had to chisel their own will into their own cornerstone, and they were granted a unique power in return, so each cornerstone has a different power that doesn't really reflect the path of the preservation. Aventurine's cornerstone is the easiest one to figure out. He was blessed by Gaia-Thra Triclops, the goddess Thrice, who might actually be Sheepa because they are the only Eon with 3 faces, and because Aventurine's element is imaginary, which is Sheepa's element. Anyway, Aventurine's blessing makes him so lucky that he never loses any bet, and if this is the will he chiseled into his own cornerstone, it's no wonder that his stone is the Aventurine of luck and trickery. Topaz's cornerstone instead is unknown because Bronya arrived and stopped the fight before she could use it. Her stone is called Topaz of Dead Retrieval, so the name doesn't really explain its power. Yelena, aka Topaz, is basically all about numbers and economics, and her cornerstone isn't as visual as Aventurine's, meaning that she doesn't get a boss transformation, so what does she do? Does she throw algebra books at people? About the other stone hearts we basically know nothing apart from the names of 3 of them, Obsidian, Opal and Pearl, and one of the stone hearts seems to have been granted the power to read people's minds. When it comes to Jade though, her power is weird, and that's an understatement. Jade basically grants wishes almost like a genie if her client pawns or gives her something of equal value that they possess. We witnessed 3 people who got their wishes granted by Jade on the Radiant Felspar. Del, the Papeshi guy, gave Jade his entire fortune to obtain a gift that would impress the Papeshi woman he's always loved, Dorothy, and this exchange was pretty straightforward. He gives her all his money, she gives him the necklace, and whatever happens next is none of her business. She couldn't care less that he's going to be evicted from the dreamscape because he no longer has the money to afford it, nor whether he'll make a comeback from poverty, nor if Dorothy will stay within despite his obviously stupid deal. Next there's Detective Walker. He spent 20 years looking for a fugitive, but he has never been able to catch the guy. He went to Jade, he offered his memory system as collateral, and she told him where the criminal was. Walker will finally be able to catch the guy, but then he will forget everything, even his own identity. Kinda less of a stupid deal, at least the heinous criminal has been arrested. And lastly we had the problematic one. Stacy has a gambling addiction, but she was bad at it, she needed luck. Because she didn't have anything to offer, Jade took away all her connections. Stacy will never lose any bet anymore, she will become filthy rich, but she will never be able to share her riches with anyone, because she won't be able to make any kind of relationship with anyone for the rest of her life. I think you can see where the problem lies. The first deal was an object for an object, which is easy. The second deal was knowledge for knowledge, which with an Intellitron is also easy. With Stacy, we're basically talking about luck, or even worse, fate. How can Jade's Cornerstone brand people's fate? The other issue comes with the fact that Jade runs a pawn shop, so people give her something as collateral and they receive what they want in exchange, but the deal usually doesn't end there. The client is given time to pay back the loan and receive their collateral back. Otherwise, the pawnbroker can just keep the object and sell it if they want to. This means that Jade should be looking not just for something as valuable as what the client wants to return, but also something that she may want for herself or something that she can sell in the future. The Pepeshi guy's money and the knowledge of a detective can both be valuable and they can also be used one way or another, but what about the ability to make connection with people? How is that valuable, usable, or sellable? And lastly, her clients will never really be able to repay the loan, so whenever someone pawns something, they will never get it back. I mean, how can the Intellitron give her back the info about the criminal, especially if he has no memory of the deal anymore? Or how can Stacy give her back her luck? The only one who comes out on top is Jade alone. So it's not a pawn shop, it's not even a genie in a bottle, it's basically the lair of the Tempter. And guess what? Which animal did they choose for her gameplay? A snake, like the one that tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. Jade is literally the devil. When it comes to the deal Robin made with Jade, on the other hand, things may turn for the tragic. First of all, I would like to point out the fact that in my Order and Harmony of Teyvat video, I basically figured out by associating Sunday and Robin to Lumine and Ether that Sunday was going to be released by Jade and embark on a journey across the universe, while Robin was going to try and look for him, and even I am surprised about how correct that prediction was. Since we're talking about Genshin Impact for a second, Jade said something really interesting.
Go now. You are free, O Chosen One, who dare to exceed his bounds. Sever your wings, descend to the mortal realm, and walk their lands. See what this world is truly like.
This really feels like Lumine being sent back to Teyvat after being caught by Sasti. She lost her powers, her wings being severed, she was sent to Teyvat, the mortal realm, and she journeyed across the nation to see at the end of her journey what the true nature of the world was. There's also a legit story about Zaum. A prophet brought advanced technology, a great tide caused by human folly spread like a plague, the people of the planet fought against each other, history was altered, timelines got merged, and a nation got reduced to a mere geographical concept. I mean, it's literally the cataclysm on Teyvat. Anyway, back to Stariel, Jade made a deal with Robin so that Sunday could be released from the family's prison and be allowed to, once again, try and build a true haven where everyone can attain peace. For this to happen, as before, Robin must have given her something of equal value as collateral, so what could it be? Think back on the events in version 2.3. We were invited to the new version of the Charmony Festival that took place on the Radiant Felspar, and Robin was the main attraction once again, but she only made a toast and gifted the Nameless the whole ship without old Ori's consent. Then, when the Trailblazer literally went stupid, even more than before, and decided to take over the Reverie's management, we met Robin once again, and she told us that she was going on a trip, even though she had no destination in mind, and that she cancelled all her concerts and every other engagement she had. That she got tired of the spotlight and that she wanted to sing for the flowers and grass on the roadside. So, for Robin, what does she have that is as valuable as Sunday's freedom, if not her singing voice? But this is also the only loan that may be repayable. If Sunday actually manages to create such a perfect, harmonious world and were to give a fair share to the IPC, that could be enough for Robin to get her collateral, her singing voice, back. Before moving on to the next, pretty heavy topic, I'd like to make two quick and light digressions. First, our next destination is the planet Amphoreus, the Eternal Land, a place not even Akivili was able to reach. The planet is literally unknown to most, it was hidden away from outside observation and it can only be seen through the reflections of the mirrors in the Garden of Recollection, and is fettered by free paths, which make its destiny uncertain. The name makes me think that it will be an ancient Greece-inspired planet, also considering the achievement we got, Tell Me O Muse, which is a line from the Odyssey that we in Italy literally learned by heart. I mean, cantami o diva del peri d'Achille, l'ira funesta che infiniti addusse e lutti agli Achei, I don't think I'll ever forget it. Now, in Greek, an Amphoreus is basically an amphora, an urn, a kind of vase with two handles, but in Japanese the planet was named Omphalos, which is a stone artifact that represents the navel or center of the world that Zeus discovered to be in Delphi, where the Sibylla, the ancient Greek oracle, was. My prediction is very simple. Ancient Greece planet contended between two Eons plus one that is just watching. Let me explain. If this planet represents the center of the world, so the center of the universe in this case, one of the Eons should be Nous, the erudition. Also because we always go to a planet with a playable path that the Trailblazer can acquire. Nous is said to be at the center of the universe, but no one can actually find its location, so it actually fits. The other Eon may be Mythos, the Enigmata, since no one knows that this planet even exists, and the Enigmata is the enemy of the erudition, so it would explain the planet being contended. Another option might be Aha the Elation, since Sparkle mentioned Amphoreus in the Cosmodesy event, but I don't know how reliable that is. The third Eon instead should be Fully the Remembrance, since the planet can be seen from the Garden of Recollection and Black Swan is coming with us. Since Fully's goal is to witness important events, I highly doubt they'll take action. They'll just sit back and watch and record the show. What a nice Primal mobile they have. The other quick digression is something I discovered while researching for what we will talk about in the next chapter of this video. I came across something pretty interesting. When Akivili was still alive, one of the navigators of the Astral Express was Dolly, aka Crystal. She was a musician from TFO who, inspired by Akivili's achievements, decided to embark the Express to write a ballad about the Trailblaze. She was emotional and empathetic, a very artistic and imaginative person, and her voice was so beautiful that even Akivili, who for some reason wasn't on the Express, came back to talk and listen to her. When the Nameless sensed Akivili's disappearance though, Dolly began crystallizing for reasons unknown. She kept singing for 3 days to fix her condition, but when it was clear that there was no way out of it, she handed over her position as Navigator, probably to IC the Starseer, and remained under the stars forever. In Dolly's depiction, we see a woman with pink hair playing a violin, covered in a kind of teal and pink crystal. Does that remind you of another artistic person, although her focus is not on music, who's emotional and empathetic, who was found in a unique pink and teal ice crystal among the stars and can still use it as her element? Could it be that March is simply one of the last navigators of the Express during Akivili's time, who also witnessed their death, reason why the Garden of Recollection has completely sealed her memories? I do wonder why she didn't ask Black Swan about it though. Now, for the heavy topic of this video, you might want to sit back because this is going to be long. I was suggested by one of my viewers to watch a very interesting video by Maevix, Central Finite Curve, about Akivili and Terminus. At first, I didn't really believe in this theory, it made no sense to me, but then I realized that it just got stuck in my brain and I was still thinking about it non-stop. I will summarize it in the shortest possible way, so I highly recommend you watch the video, link in the description and in the card's top right, because it is a very well thought theory and the effort is evident. In short, Maevix shared the possibility that Akivili reached the goal of their path, something no other Eon has ever done before, but also something other Eons can't really achieve because of the nature of their goals. Having reached their goal, Akivili then ascended to a new form, that of Terminus, an Eon who's basically still on some sort of journey, but differently from Akivili, they don't go forward, they go backward. This could be the third but unknown means in which an Eon can die that Kafka didn't tell us, meaning that death, in this case, is not the actual death of an Eon, but the end of their previous form and the birth of a new one. Maevix also sustains this theory because IC, the navigator of the Astral Express who witnessed Akivili's death, left the Astral Express and the path of the Trailblaze and embarked on the path of the Finality, founding the Omen Vanguards, although as Maevix also said, IC's story cannot be taken at face value because Mythos the Enigmata modified it multiple times, so what we know about IC can even be completely fake. Now, there are a few points of Maevix's theory that I don't agree with. Akivili was a very special Eon who could do things other Eons can't. They had more freedom than the others despite the Primal Mobile, probably because of the nature of their path. But when it comes to reaching the goal of a path and ascending a second time as a consequence, I have my doubts. We know that the star rail began on Pegana, Akivili's homeworld, and ended at Pegana, where it definitely had to
depart once more,
because the Astral Express kept on traveling across the universe after Akivili's death. I mean, Mikhail ended up on Penacony while traveling on the Astral Express, then it broke and crashed on Himiko's planet, and now we are currently going back to Pegana once again. If Akivili reached his goal, that is the endpoint of the Tree of Existence, so the end of the universe, and there they ascended becoming Terminus, then how did they come back to Pegana? Maevix also said that the goals of the other Ians are unachievable compared to Akivili's. Aha is always looking for the apex of enjoyment, but there will always be something funnier to do. Klipath instead wants to create walls across the entirety of the universe to preserve it, but they will never be able to do so because the universe is ever expanding. But for this same reason though, how could have Akivili reach the end of the universe if it keeps expanding? It's not even like Akivili was just driving through space straight to its end. The Astral Express kept making stops in multiple worlds, so they couldn't possibly keep up with the expansion of the universe. Another statement I disagree with is that Akivili died in the third unknown way Kafka almost mentioned. Now, Kafka specified that she was talking about how an Ian can be disposed of, not how they can die in general. If reaching the goal of a path means death, that doesn't really count as being disposed of because there's no one performing the action of putting an end to an Ian. Similarly, Maevix also said that Akivili hadn't been absorbed by any other Ian because his path still exists. But we know from the beginning of the game that paths don't disappear with the death of their Ians, they keep existing. But more specifically, we witnessed in Penacony how Enna's path of the Order kept existing even after they were absorbed by Shippa the Harmony. So the status of a path doesn't really tell us anything about the fate of its Ian. As things stand, it feels like I'm outright denying Maevix's whole theory, but I actually don't. To understand my thoughts, we should first talk about both Akivili and Terminus and get to know them a little better. As we said before, Akivili originated from the isolated world of Pegana, and they ascended to Ianhood because they couldn't stand the concept of the unknowable, so they created the Chromatic Echelon, the Astral Express, and started traveling across the universe to reach the endpoint of the Tree of Existence. The path Akivili created with the Express became known as the Star Rail, and was later used by the IPC and the Xianzhou as a safe route across the universe, but this road is also the path of the Trailblaze itself. We also learned that the Astral Express converts the Trailblaze, that is the will of the Nameless to explore and discover the universe, into energy or fuel, so if the Nameless keep journeying throughout the universe, the Astral Express will be able to run indefinitely. And if the Astral Express were to go where it has never been before, so if the Nameless created a new stretch, a new fork in the Star Rail, the amount of fuel would be incomparable. This is most likely how Akivili originally managed to create such an extensive railroad across the universe, because back then every world they found was essentially a new discovery. Every direction the Astral Express went laid down a new stretch of the Star Rail, so the fuel was literally endless. Akivili though one day suddenly ceased to exist. For the databank, they were involved in an accident which ended their destiny. Himiko straight up told us that they are deceased, while Kafka lists Akivili among the fallen Ians, but she apparently doesn't know how they died. Only News the Erudition may know what happened. When did Akivili die? Well, we weren't specifically told the exact year that happened, but we can actually figure it out. We know that Akivili ascended to Ianhood in the first epoch of the Umber era, so basically not long after Klipath became an Ian, and established the Star Rail in 1168 AE, when the first prosperity began because the path of the Trailblaze allowed other civilizations, like the IPC, to travel across the universe. We also know that Akivili disappeared after the second prosperity, which was the 400 Ember eras following the end of the Borestar Trade War and the Emperor's War. Akivili was still alive during the second prosperity because they visited Adlivan, Nanook's homeworld, when the civilization was fighting against the remnants of the Swarm disaster because the planet happened to be on their path, but what's important is that Adlivan had already been ravaged because of the Emperor's War. When it comes to the actual moment in the timeline, we need to go to the Xianzhou. In the year 3287 of the star calendar, some Marumatons revolted against the Xianzhou and caused countless deaths, because they had been corrupted by Ruber I, the computer that gained self-awareness and caused the whole Emperor's War. Considering that the events we experienced on the Xianzhou in the game happened in the year 8100 of the star calendar, the Arumaton's rebellion happened 4813 years ago. Considering also that we have never heard of any interaction between Akivili and Lan the Hunt, I would further say that Akivili must have died before Lan ascended to Ianhood, which happened around year 3400 of the star calendar, so 4700 years ago. This is as close as we can get to Akivili's disappearance, between 4800 to 4700 years ago, give or take. Now the most obvious question that really didn't need a recount of Akivili's life is, how can an Ian who died in the past become a being that is traveling from the end of time to its beginning? This means that Akivili can possibly have become Terminus, but there's a twist to this answer. And to get there, we should first talk about the little we actually know about Terminus The Finality. According to Elegy, a member of the Creed Exequi, who is, like the whole faction, trying to find the Ian to ask them questions, Terminus is the god of finality who is traveling back in time from the future. They appear at every moment of finality and they bring prophecies of the future or records of the past from their point of view. The finality isn't the end of everything. All things originate from the end and move on to the next finality, which sounds like a cycle, and we are all pretty much used to this concept whether you played Genshin Impact or Honkai Impact. What's also interesting but equally hard to explain is that the finality causes the end of a path by causing its opposite. Clipoff's Ember will rapture, Yasha's immortality will wither, Sheepa's music will mute, Landslide arrows will dim, IX will be reduced to ashes even though it's a black hole, and Aha's tavern will be abandoned and be covered in dust. Even Nanook won't be able to avoid their own destruction. Something else we know about Terminus is that they murmur a prophecy destined to be fulfilled, and it's perceived as a somniloquy, of which the words are like an enigma being played out backwards. This means that the shapeless prince, Terminus, is basically slipping his way through back in time and they're talking in their sleep. By the way, Terminus really reminds me of Astaroth in Genshin Impact. You know, time powers and the people of Enkanomiya calling her name a reverse. Lastly, a weird occurrence of the finality is recorded in the Beyond the Sky choir, when a sudden dissonant interval was heard in their singing. This was when the order and the finality brushed past each other. Considering that Enna was absorbed by Sheepa at the end of the Swarm disaster, how did this even happen? I can think of only one solution to this question, which could also explain what the finality really is. Terminus has already completed their journey across time, so they appear to be present in every single era, according to the person or Ian who interacted with them in those specific moments in time. Terminus appears at every moment of finality because these moments are essentially the moments in which each Ian died. Terminus was present when Enna was absorbed, as we said before. They were also present when Tesseronth died, because in the Swarm Disaster Simulator universe, there are half-deciphered whispers played in reverse, which means the finality was there, and if we watch the Myriad Celestia trailer, we see Idrila the Beauty, then the finality appears for just a split second, and then Tesseronth the Propagation, and these two Ians are dead. And also between Who the Equilibrium and Akivili the Trailblaze, because Fully the Remembrance isn't really mentioned in the scene, they're just shown. Here things get tricky. Unless the video means to say that Who is going to die next, I think the finality here represents the death of the Ian that are shown after their name. In this case, Idrila may not be dead, which is what the mirror holders believe, so the finality refers to the propagation and then to Akivili. So what is the finality exactly? Considering the Terminus comes back from the future, from the end of time, that they're present when the Ians die, and that the finality is the death of the Ians that predetermines their birth, I think Terminus is the inevitable, but also the accumulation of all the Eons that died across time. The Eons then are something like Terminus' Eidolons, or better yet, the shadows that the Trailblazer uses to level up, since they represent the Eons themselves. This also means that all the Eons will meet their moment of finality, they will all die and become Terminus, and then they'll go back to the dawn of time to be born again and move to the next finality, while also making sure that this cycle repeats itself, which should be Terminus Prima Mobile. They can change the future, they exist to make sure that these events happen. So as you can see, in a sense I do agree with Maevix's theory that Akivili became Terminus, but I expanded the concept a little further. Now back to Kafka, could it be that the third way to dispose of an Eon is for the finality to happen, so when Terminus disposes of an Eon because that Eon's time is simply up? In version 2.3, we also learned that the Stellaron Hunters are a faction of the Finality, which in hindsight makes complete sense considering Elio's powers. Elio's scripts always tell exactly what is going to happen to ensure a specific outcome, so he knows for a fact how the future is going to play, or better yet, how Terminus' past happened. So who is Elio? Well, I'm almost certain that he is the black cat that always appears with the Stellaron Hunters, not just because cats will conquer the world, but because it was more or less said in Kafka's recruitment story. Elio sent an unknown Stellaron Hunter to specific coordinates and times on Teries 5, where and when Kafka would have appeared. This hunter had to move an untouched canned drink so that Kafka would stop in front of it, and then throw this ball at her feet and let Elio take over and convince her to join the Stellaron Hunters. What this means is that the hunter threw the ball, the cat followed the ball as any cat would, and then the cat started talking to Kafka. The devs sure love talking cats, it seems. Elio is also defined as Destiny's slave, and as such, it makes me think that he is an emanator of the finality, and that he is forced to make the events from his scripts happen. Firefly told us that Elio's scripts have always revolved around specific Stellarons, which means that each Stellaron is different, they all have different kinds of powers. When Kafka put the Stellaron inside the Trailblazer though, things changed. According to Firefly, this could potentially mean that Elio was able to see the impossible in the future, which is kinda weird unless this event created a new future that wasn't supposed to exist, so something actually impossible. Now, the Trailblazer is an artificial body created for the purpose of hosting a Stellaron, and his body was transformed by the power of an Eon, which at this point could be Terminus. Elio then entrusted the Trailblazer to Kafka because he, I play as Chelus, will change her and she will change him. They are each other's destiny. This means that the Trailblazer will be the one who, somehow, will cause Kafka to feel fear for the first time in her life, the goal that she's trying to accomplish and that Elio promised her. In case you didn't know, the civilization from Teries 5 is unable to feel fear. It doesn't exist in their brains, but Kafka really wants to experience it. So I guess the Trailblazer will do or experience something so terrifying that even Kafka will be scared. What could this event be? Well, let's recap everything we discussed so far. The finality is a natural and inevitable occurrence in the universe, so it shouldn't be the calamity Qlipoth is trying to prevent. On the other hand, we have an artificial being created and modified by the finality that caused the impossible in the predictions of the future, so most likely a new event that doesn't exist in Terminus' past. And this being is also gathering the powers of the Eons one by one. Could it be that Terminus' goal in this cycle is not to just bring finality to the universe and give birth to it once again, but they're trying to go against their own path? Could it be that they created a being who, much like themselves, is becoming the accumulation of the Eons so that he, the Trailblazer, could defeat them, Terminus, and bring them their own moment of finality? Could it be that the Trailblazer is the calamity that the universe will eventually have to face at the end of time? And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Star Rail and or Genshin Impact Theory videos, consider subscribing. I will definitely see you again with a video about the Imaginarium Theater from Genshin Impact because I'm really excited to play it. I'll end the video here, so thank you so much for watching, and until next time, over and out.